Noah Kessler had never believed in bad omens, but the way his morning unfolded forced him to reconsider. First, his kettle sputtered halfway through boiling. Then his phone froze mid-scroll while he was reviewing a product comment thread. And finally, just as the sun broke over the trees behind his Topanga Canyon rental, his inbox pinned with a subject line that made his stomach drop. "You need to see this Jam Queen review." He clicked, reluctantly, and then leaned back in his chair with a quiet groan as the video loaded. The title alone was enough to ignite a full-body cringe. Jam Queen, known off-camera as Judith Pankhurst, was infamous in niche food circles for her no-mercy reviews and grandmotherly sarcasm. Her thumbnail showed her holding a jar of as ever's limited edition preserve with exaggerated disappointment. Her lips were pursed, her brows knitted. It looked like a mugshot of someone who had just tasted betrayal. Noah watched as she scooped the jam with theatrical flair, took a tiny taste, and dramatically winced. She proceeded to describe the jam as confused, overpriced, and worst of all boring. She mocked the design of the jar, compared the flavor to fruit that had given up on itself, and wrapped up her takedown with a smirk that would haunt Noah all day. The final blow came when she labeled the product as hollow as the Duchess's PR team. Noah didn't move for a full minute. Then he stood up, opened the sliding glass door to his patio, and stared at the canyon. He felt the chill on his skin, but it didn't wake him from the realization forming in his mind. This wasn't just a bad review, it was a wildfire. He walked back inside, picked up his phone, and saw it had already begun. Mentions were climbing. Influencers were sharing the clip. Jam Queen versus Meghan was trending in 2 countries. Then he sat down and started typing. Damage control wasn't optional. It was already late. And somehow, he had to convince everyone from the executive suite to the assistant copywriters that one elderly woman with a marmalade spoon hadn't just undone 3 months of launch strategy in 7 minutes flat. Julian Hadley had barely finished his morning espresso when his phone began vibrating against the marble counter like it was trying to escape. He glanced at the screen and saw 3 missed calls from Noah Kessler and a dozen Slack notifications from the Montecito Comes team. His stomach tightened. He already knew it wasn't going to be a normal day. He opened the group thread and scrolled. Screenshots of comments, retweets of memes, and links to the viral review flooded the channel. The Jam Queen video had hit 2 million views overnight. The hashtag Jam Scam was now trending just below a Hollywood divorce rumor. Someone had even edited a photo of Meghan Markle holding a jam jar with a crown made of burnt toast. Julian threw on a sweater and moved to his laptop. He opened the sentiment dashboard, and the line chart told him everything. Public perception of the As Ever brand had dipped 18% in less than 12 hours. He didn't need a memo to know what that meant. He needed a solution, or at least something that looked like one. He jumped into the emergency Zoom meeting a few minutes later. Aiden Price's face appeared first, sharp and unreadable as always. Behind him, digital strategist Theo Barnes adjusted his headset with the weariness of someone who had seen worse. But not by much. Julian shared his screen, pointed to a spike in negative keywords, and then paused when the team went silent. It wasn't just the review, it was the ripple effect. Other food critics were now chiming in. One compared the jam's texture to hair gel. Another called it emotionally distant. Theo leaned forward and suggested a pivot. They could reframe the jam box as a cheeky experiment, say it was meant to spark conversation. Aiden didn't respond. Instead, he typed something silently into his notes. Julian noticed the tension build, not with shouting, but with a kind of collective paralysis. No one wanted to speak on Meghan's behalf. Not until she responded. Noah finally joined the call, disheveled but focused. He had already begun drafting a press response, but his voice wavered when he brought up the Duchess. She hadn't replied to emails. Her assistant had issued a vague monitoring situation message. Julian leaned back, watching the chat light up with more disaster screenshots. The campaign they had built with care and precision, months of strategy, artisan partnerships, soft focus photo shoots, was now reduced to punchlines and TikTok duets. He sighed, then minimized the dashboard. It wasn't about jam anymore. It was about credibility. And they were losing it one meme at a time. Aiden Price didn't like clutter. His Montecito office was almost monastic in its order, just one oak desk, a cream-colored chair, and a wall of books with their spines arranged by tone. So when the team sent him 5 conflicting drafts of a response to the Jam Queen fiasco, he didn't skim them. He deleted all 5 without a second glance. Then he opened a blank document and started from scratch. He had managed public meltdowns. Before an athlete caught cheating, a CEO's offhand comment, even a royal cousin's failed fashion line, but this jam situation baffled him. Not because it was unusual, but because it was ordinary. A bad product review should have passed quietly. But this wasn't just about taste or texture. It was about Meghan's brand and, worse, her perceived detachment. The audience wasn't mocking the jam. They were mocking her. He dialed into the smaller strategy meeting, this time without inviting the broader team. Only Julian, Theo, and Noah joined. Julian looked paler than usual, his background cluttered with printouts of meme screenshots and influencer responses. Theo wore his typical half-ironic smirk, bouncing a stress ball under the desk. Aiden muted the line and let them talk. Julian pulled up engagement numbers again, which had now spiked in Europe and Australia. Theo mentioned that a satirical food blog was calling for a global jam boycott just for fun. Noah, still trying to hold on to some optimism, suggested turning it into a learning moment, a series about failed recipes, maybe even a direct video from Meghan herself. Aiden unmuted. He told them to pause everything. No statements, no spins, no soft resets. He wanted silence. He had seen this pattern before. In moments like this, the world didn't want explanation, it wanted acknowledgement. But only once the fire cooled. He asked for a halt on all marketing activity for 72 hours. Let the audience have their jokes. Let the energy burn itself out. Then he crafted a quiet directive. Reframe the narrative from inside. Don't talk about jam, talk about process, about mistakes, about who the brand was meant to serve. Julian nodded slowly. Theo raised a brow. Noah looked unsure but didn't argue. Aiden leaned back in his chair and stared at the corner of his office, where a jar of as ever's raspberry basil preserve still sat unopened. He made a mental note to throw it away. Not because it tasted bad, but because now it represented something bigger. The moment a carefully curated brand got pulled back to earth. Noah Kessler sat in the corner booth of a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the As Ever bungalow, his laptop open but untouched. Outside, the California sun warmed the sidewalk, but inside, a strange stillness hung over him. It had been 4 days since the Jam Queen's viral video, and the internet had finally begun to move on, drawn to some new celebrity scandal involving a misplaced dog and a runaway golf cart. But the damage lingered. He scrolled through the As Ever dashboard again, watching the engagement curve slowly flatten. The memes had slowed. The boycott hashtags had dropped out of trending. But the trust, that unspoken currency, the brand thrived. On was bruised. He sipped his lukewarm coffee and waited for the update Aiden had promised. At 2:09 p.m. It arrived. The subject line read simply, "The Fireside concept approved." He opened the attachment. Meghan had signed off on a new video series, not a glossy promo, not a spin. A filmed conversation in her own kitchen, Just her and the team talking about failed launches, misunderstood products, and what it meant to build something from scratch under public scrutiny. She had even insisted the first episode feature the now infamous Jamjar. Julian messaged him moments later, already drafting the set design and lighting layout. Theo dropped a link to a production crew he trusted. Aiden, of course, had already prepared a list of guiding topics and potential critics to invite, including Judith Pankhurst, the Jam Queen herself. Noah exhaled through his nose and closed his laptop. Later that evening, in the bungalow's meeting space, he helped rearrange the furniture for the first shoot. They removed the branded backdrops, replaced them with simple wood shelves, a tea kettle, and a cutting board with half-sliced bread. No stylists. No scripted lines. Julian adjusted a small mic near the counter. Theo checked the light balance on his phone. Aiden arrived last, carrying 2 clean jam jars, one of which he placed in front of the camera without a word. When Meghan walked in quiet, makeup-free, hair loosely pinned, no one said anything for a moment. She looked at the setup, nodded slightly, and walked to her chair. Noah watched as the camera began to roll. She smiled softly and reached for the jar, not to defend it, not to dismiss it, but to open it. And as she scooped a bit onto the toast in front of her, the room seemed to pause, not in fear, but in something far rarer in the world of brand strategy: grace.